Callahan Ridge. Vincent Okafor shoved my hand onto the brick oven in front of my son's wedding guests. And for one burning second, my skin stuck to the iron handle. Nobody moved. The music kept playing somewhere behind me. But the whole patio went cold as 110 people watched me tear my palm free. Vincent smiled like a man wiping dust off his sleeve. "Tom drank too much," he said loudly. He slipped. My son Nathan looked at my blistered hand, then at his bride's family, and whispered, "Dad, please don't ruin tonight." That hurt worse than the burn. I wrapped my hand in a towel, said nothing, and walked away. They thought silence meant surrender. They didn't know what I had locked in a safe deposit box or whose name was on it. Before I tell you how a wedding turned into the night my family split open, I want to thank you for being here. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from tonight, your town, your state, even the little place nobody else seems to know. I read those names, and they remind me how many people carry quiet wounds inside families that look perfect from the outside. This story uses fictional names and details, but the feeling underneath it is real. To understand why I stayed silent at that oven, we have to go back 3 months before the wedding. I turned 68 that spring with no candles, no party, just a mug of black coffee cooling in my hand on the porch of the farmhouse. Diane had been gone 2 years, and the silence she left behind still had weight. Some mornings, it sat across from me like a person, in the chair where she used to fold the newspaper and tell me I was working too hard. Callahan Ridge Vineyard started as raw hillside when I was 26. Back then, I had a used tractor, a loan big enough to scare me awake at night, and a wife who believed in me before the land gave her any reason to. Together, we cleared brush, planted Cabernet, repaired fences, survived bad harvests, and turned stubborn dirt into something people in Sonoma eventually called valuable. Most folks still saw me as Tom Callahan, the old widower in a faded canvas jacket who drove his own forklift and fixed broken irrigation lines with his sleeves rolled up. I preferred it that way. Diane and I had learned early that money changes the way people stand around you. So we kept the real numbers quiet: the vineyard, the tasting room, the event permits. The reserves, none of that was for show. It was our life's work, and I was not ready to let anyone price it like scrap. Nathan called a few days later with that careful brightness a son uses when he is trying not to sound like he wants something. "Dad, Priya's father is in town next week," he said. "I thought maybe you two could sit down before the wedding. Just get to know each other." I heard the request underneath the words, but I loved my boy, so I said yes. Priya Sharma had been in Nathan's life for 8 months, and I liked her. She was sharp, composed, the kind of young woman who could walk into a tech marketing meeting and make older men stop checking their phones. She treated me kindly, though sometimes her eyes moved too fast, like she was already managing 3 problems nobody else could see. Her father, Vincent Okafor, was different. I had met him twice at restaurants where he smiled wide, ordered expensive wine, and complimented everything while quietly measuring it. His suit said success, his handshake said control. He had a habit of looking at land, people, and even family like assets waiting to be priced. Vincent arrived the following Tuesday in a black Range Rover that looked too clean for a gravel road. He stepped out wearing polished shoes, a navy sport coat, and sunglasses even though the sky was flat gray. I remember noticing how he closed the door with 2 fingers, like he did not want the dust on my driveway touching him. Then he smiled wide and said, "Tom, this place is incredible. Pictures don't do it justice." I thanked him and started walking him through the north block, where the oldest Cabernet vines twisted out of the soil like old hands. I talked about weather, rootstock, irrigation, the things that actually mattered. Vincent listened just enough to appear respectful, but his eyes kept moving past the vines toward the farmhouse, the tasting room, the barn, the event lawn, the ridge line. "How many acres total?" he asked. 140, I said. He gave a slow whistle. "And you own all of it outright?" I looked at him. "Diane and I paid off the last note 12 years ago." His smile changed then. "Not much, just enough." "Smart," he said. "Very smart. Have you had a recent appraisal done?" I told him I knew what my land was worth without paying a stranger to flatter me on paper. He laughed. "But it came out a little too sharp. A man in your position should always know the number," he said. "Not emotionally. Legally. Financially." That night, over pot roast at my kitchen table, he found his way back to the same subject 3 different times. Estate planning, trust structures, probate court, tax exposure, liquidity, generational protection. He made every word sound responsible. The way a salesman wraps a hook in velvet. I've seen families destroyed because older parents waited too long, he said, glancing at Nathan. No clear plan, no shared control. Then one medical event and everything gets trapped. Nathan shifted in his chair. Priya looked down at her plate. I kept cutting my meat. My affairs are handled, I said. Vincent raised both hands, smiling. Of course, I'm only saying. With an asset this large, it's not just about you anymore. It's about Nathan, Priya, future grandchildren. Nathan finally spoke. Dad, he's just trying to help. Vincent deals with this stuff all the time. I looked at my son, then at the man sitting across from me in my dead wife's chair, already speaking about my life's work like it was a problem to solve. I appreciate concern, I said calmly, but the vineyard's ownership is not a family discussion, not a wedding discussion, and not something I'll be pressured into changing. Vincent's smile stayed on his face. His eyes did not. 11 days after that dinner, I was driving my flatbed down Fitch Mountain Road with 20 empty grape crates strapped behind the cab. It was a Thursday run I had made for more than 20 years. The kind of route your hands remember better than your mind does. The morning was clear, the road dry, and I was thinking about harvest numbers when I came around the second switchback and pressed the brake pedal. It went straight to the floor. No catch, no pressure, just a soft, empty drop under my boot. For 1 second, my brain refused to accept it. Then, the truck started gaining speed, and the guardrail ahead looked thinner than it ever had in my life. Beyond it was a 200-foot drop into oak and rock. I pumped the pedal twice, then 3 times. Nothing. I downshifted hard, felt the engine scream, and steered into the gravel shoulder, scraping the whole passenger side against the embankment. The truck bucked like an animal trying to throw me. Branches slapped the windshield. Metal screamed against stone. Finally, the front bumper buried itself against a fallen oak trunk about 15 feet from the rail. I sat there with both hands locked on the wheel, blood running from a cut above my eye, my ribs burning against the seatbelt. A woman walking her dog came running down the road, already calling 911. When she asked if I was all right, I told her yes, because that is what men my age say before they know whether it is true. At the hospital, they gave me 4 stitches and told me I was lucky. Nathan arrived 40 minutes later, pale and shaken, and hugged me like he was afraid I might disappear. Dad, what happened? The brakes failed, I said. He should have stayed with that sentence. Instead, he called Vincent. I still remember Vincent's voice coming through the speaker, smooth and warm, too steady for a man hearing about a near-fatal accident. Tom, thank God you're alive, but this is exactly what worries me. A man your age, alone on mountain roads, managing all that property by yourself. I looked at the fluorescent lights above the hospital bed. Vincent continued, gentle as poison. Maybe this is the sign everyone needed. Put the vineyard into a family trust. Let Nathan and Priya help manage it, not take it from you. Protect it. Nathan squeezed my shoulder. Dad, maybe just think about it. I turned my head and looked at my son's worried face. He believed this was concern. That scared me more than the hill had. All right, I said quietly. I'll think about it. But inside, something had already gone cold. Brakes fail, men lie, accidents sometimes arrive with fingerprints, if you know where to look. I called Ray Delgado the next morning before the sun cleared the ridge. Ray had kept every engine on my property alive for 18 years. From the tractor Diane called my second wife to the forklift everybody swore should have died in 2009. He was the kind of mechanic who did not talk unless a sentence had a job. Ray, I said, I need you to look at the flatbed, not a regular inspection. Look at it like someone wanted me dead, but wanted it to look like age and bad maintenance. There was a pause. Bring it in, he said. I had the truck towed to his shop behind a feed store outside Healdsburg. I sat on an overturned bucket with my ribs aching and watched him raise it on the lift. Ray moved slowly, checking the master cylinder, the lines, the calipers, the reservoir. 20 minutes in, he stopped. Tom, he said, come here. He pointed his light at the brake line fitting near the rear axle. This connector should be tight enough to fight me, he said. It's backed off maybe a quarter turn, not enough to leak all at once while you're idling. Enough to bleed pressure when you brake hard downhill. Could vibration do that? Ray looked at me over his glasses. No, that one word settled heavier than a speech. Somebody put a wrench on it, he said. Somebody knew exactly how little to loosen it. My hands went cold, not shaking, cold. Shaking means fear is still moving through you. Cold means it has found a place to sit. I asked Ray to photograph every angle, every mark, every thread before he touched it. I asked for a written report with his name, date, time, and professional opinion. He did not ask why. Men who have worked beside you long enough know when a question would only make the moment smaller. By noon, I was sitting across from Elena Vasquez downtown. Elena had been my attorney for nearly 15 years, ever since she saved half my irrigation rights from a neighbor with more money than honesty. She was compact, sharp-eyed, and calm enough to make loud men nervous. I told her everything. Vincent's questions, the dinner conversation, Nathan defending him, the brake failure, Ray's finding. Elena stared at the report. "Do not confront him," she said. "That man may have tried to kill me." "I know," she said. "And if you accuse him before we understand why, he'll bury the trail, turn Nathan against you harder, and make you look unstable. That is already the story he wants. What do I do? You act normal. Let the wedding happen. Let Vincent believe you're tired, isolated, and easy to pressure. Meanwhile, I'm going to pull every record I can find: lawsuits, liens, bankruptcies, business partners, investor complaints. Men do this when they are desperate. Tom, I want to know exactly what kind of desperation is sitting at your table." I wanted to drive straight to my son's apartment and shake the truth into him. But the older part of me, the part Diane had trusted when things got hard, understood Elena was right. That was the day I stopped asking why this was happening to me and started asking what Vincent needed badly enough to risk everything. Elena called me the Thursday before the wedding, right as the sun was dropping behind the west block. I was in the barn sharpening pruning shears I did not need sharpened, because my hands needed something honest to do. "Tom," she said, "Vincent Okafor is not rich. He is drowning." She had found 3 investor lawsuits in Texas, 2 unpaid judgments, a federal tax lien, and a string of limited liability companies that opened clean and closed dirty. The pattern was ugly but familiar. Vincent found people with valuable property, earned a seat at their dinner table, then used fear, family, or false urgency to push himself into control. "He doesn't want your vineyard for Priya's future," Elena said. "He needs it to survive his own collapse." I looked out at the rows Diane and I had planted by hand, and for the first time, I understood the shape of the threat. Vincent was not admiring my land. He was circling it, desperate enough to mistake an old man's silence for weakness now. The wedding arrived on the last Saturday of September, warm and golden. The kind of afternoon people pay photographers to pretend they captured by accident. The vines were heavy with fruit. The oak posts were wrapped in white lights, and the crush pad had become a polished stage for happiness. Priya had planned every detail with care: linen tables, soft flowers, a string quartet near the arbor, and the brick oven glowing at the edge of the patio like an old family postcard. There were 110 guests. My side was small vineyard workers, 2 neighbors, a few old friends who had known Diane. Vincent's side came dressed like a board meeting with champagne. Business partners, cousins, men with expensive watches, women who kissed Priya's cheek and looked past me as if I were part of the property. By cocktail hour, I understood what Elena meant about a story being built around me. People spoke slowly when they asked how I was feeling. One man patted my shoulder and said it was brave of me to still be involved after the accident. Another called Nathan a good son for helping manage things. I smiled because the evening required it. But inside, I knew Vincent had already put me on trial before I entered the room, stubborn, aging, fragile, and standing in the way of what younger, smarter people deserved. The ceremony itself was beautiful, and that is the truth I still carry. Nathan stood under the arbor with his hands folded tight, trying not to cry before Priya even reached him. When she stepped onto the aisle, his face changed in a way only a father would notice. The boy who once ran through these vines with scraped knees was gone, and a man stood there, believing he had found his future. For a few minutes, I let myself be proud without defense. I imagined Diane beside me, squeezing my arm, whispering that our son looked handsome. Then I looked at Vincent smiling from the front row, and the picture cracked. The flowers were real, the vows were real, but something underneath that wedding had already begun to rot. By the time the reception moved into golden hour, I was standing beside the brick oven, turning flatbread with a wooden peel, and pretending I did not feel Vincent watching me from across the patio. The oven had been Diane's idea 8 years earlier. She said every good place needed a fire people could gather around. Vincent came up behind me with a glass of Cabernet in one hand, and his tie loosened at the throat. "Beautiful night," he said. "Beautiful property." I kept my eyes on the oven. "It is." He stepped closer. "I have the trust documents in my car. I turned then. His smile stayed friendly, but his voice dropped. Tonight is perfect. Nathan and Priya are happy. Everyone is here. You sign. We put the vineyard where it belongs, and no one has to make this difficult. The vineyard belongs exactly where it is, I said. His jaw tightened. You are making a mistake. No, I said. I am ending a conversation you never had permission to start. That was when the mask slipped. His face darkened, and his voice rose enough for the nearest table to hear. You're sitting on $12 million of land, Tom. And you don't even know what to do with it. You're old, stubborn, and selfish. This family is trying to protect what matters. I looked at him calmly. Then protect your own family, Vincent. Mine is not for sale. Vincent moved before I did. One moment he was standing there with that red anger climbing his neck, and the next, his hand clamped around my wrist like a vice. I remember the pressure first, not the heat. His fingers dug into the same arm Diane used to hold when we walked the rows at sunset. Let go, I said. He shoved. My palm hit the cast iron handle of the brick oven, the one that had been burning all evening. And pain went white through my whole body. My skin stuck for one terrible second. I heard myself make a sound I had never made in war rooms, hospitals, funerals, or beside my wife's grave, a raw, broken sound that stopped the music cold. The patio froze. 110 guests stared. Glasses hung in midair. Priya's face went pale. Vincent stepped back fast, smoothing his jacket as if he had only brushed against me by accident. He slipped, Vincent said, loud enough for everyone. Tom's had too much wine. I was trying to catch him. I held my burned hand against my chest. The skin was already blistering. Nobody spoke. Some people looked horrified. Others looked away. Because looking away is easier than becoming a witness. Then Nathan came through the crowd. For 1 second, I saw the little boy who used to run to me when he was scared. I thought he would ask if I needed a doctor. I thought he would turn on Vincent. I thought blood meant something. Instead, my son stopped 3 feet away, his eyes darting toward Priya's family, toward the cameras, toward the wedding about to collapse. Dad, he whispered, desperate. Please don't make a scene. Not tonight, not at my wedding. That sentence burned deeper than the iron could. I looked at Nathan, then at Vincent, and understood the truth clearly. I had been hurt, but they expected me to apologize for bleeding. I walked away from my own son's wedding, with my burned hand wrapped in a towel turning pink at the edges. Behind me, after a few stunned seconds, the music started again. That was the part I remember most clearly, not the heat, not Vincent's lie. The music. People can watch an old man get hurt in public and still decide the party deserves saving. Inside the farmhouse, the quiet hit me so hard I had to put my good hand on the kitchen counter. Diane's blue coffee mug was still on the shelf above the sink. I stared at it while cold water ran over my palm and carried thin streaks of blood into the drain. The pain came in waves, but I kept my jaw shut. A man learns over time that yelling does not make pain leave. It only tells the wrong people where to press next. For 20 minutes, nobody knocked. Not Priya, not Vincent, not Nathan. I shut off the water, sat at the kitchen table, and looked at the empty chair across from me. He put my hand on the oven tonight. Diane, I said into the room. My voice sounded flat, almost tired, and our boy asked me not to embarrass him. That was when something inside me settled, not broke, settled. Breaking is loud. This was permanent, like a gate closing at the end of a long road. I picked up the phone with my good hand and called Elena. He did it in front of everyone, I told her. Burned my hand and called me drunk. Are you going to the hospital? Not tonight, Tom. I'll document it in the morning. Photos, medical report, everything. But I'm not giving him a police scene at the wedding. I'm not giving him the version he wants. Elena was silent. Then what are you giving him? I looked through the window at the patio, at guests dancing around a lie. I'm giving him comfort, I said. I'm going to act like an old man who learned his place. Then I'll let him reach for what he thinks he already owns. Vincent waited 9 days before he called. Men like him never rush when they believe fear is already doing the work for them. His voice came through hard and low. I have footage from the reception, he said. Security camera near the patio. It shows you stumbling into the oven. That is not what happened. It is what people will see, he said. The part before that is gone. The angle is bad. You look confused. Tom, drunk, maybe, unsteady. After that accident with your brakes, after all this talk about you refusing help, I don't think the sheriff will see a strong old farmer. I think he'll see a man losing his grip. I let my breathing sound tired. What do you want? The vineyard goes into a family trust. Nathan and Priya as co-trustees. You sign Friday? Then the video disappears. When I told Elena, she did not look surprised. She only opened a leather case on her desk and took out a plain black pen. This ink fades completely in 48 hours, she said. You are going to sign the first document with this. Nathan and Priya need to witness it. Vincent needs to believe you folded. Friday afternoon, I sat in a conference room that smelled like printer toner and cheap coffee. Nathan was there, nervous and pale. Priya sat beside him, watching her father too closely. Vincent laid the trust papers in front of me like a priest placing scripture on an altar. You're doing the right thing, he said. I picked up Elena's pen and signed my name slowly. Thomas Callahan. My hand still ached under the bandage. Nathan exhaled like peace had been restored. Priya whispered, "Thank you, Tom." I almost felt sorry for her. 2 days later, Vincent's lawyer found the signature line blank. No scratch marks, no torn fibers, no altered page, just empty white space where my surrender had been. Vincent screamed fraud. He threatened lawsuits. He called me weak, senile, dangerous. Elena recorded every message, every threat, every demand. The disappearing ink did exactly what we needed. It did not save the vineyard. It proved the trap was real, and Vincent was willing to tighten it with both hands. 2 weeks later, Vincent chose a title office in a strip mall 40 miles south of the vineyard. That told me plenty. No polished conference room, no attorney asking questions, just a tired notary, fluorescent lights, and a printer coughing in the corner. I came in wearing my canvas jacket and work boots. Vincent was seated with dark circles under his eyes and victory sitting ugly on his face. The document waited in front of him. Not another trust form this time. A quitclaim deed. Real paper. Real transfer. My name as grantor. The family trust as grantee. Nathan was not there. Priya was not there. Vincent had stopped needing witnesses once he believed fear had done its work. You understand what this means, Tom, he asked. I understand papers. He smiled. No. You understand dirt, vines, weather, broken tractors. You do not understand leverage. A property like yours is not a home. It is trapped capital. The right buyer will see what you never could. I looked at him for a moment. I wanted to tell him Diane and I had seen every inch of that land before men like him knew Cabernet. But the plan required silence. So, I picked up the pen. My burned hand pulled tight under the bandage as I signed slowly. Thomas Callahan. The notary stamped the page before the ink had settled. Vincent exhaled like a man stepping into sunlight. He thought I had surrendered. The truth was, the trap only worked if the deed was real. What Vincent did not know was that 11 years earlier, after a frost nearly ruined us, Diane and I had expanded the tasting room into a small commercial event space. Weddings, corporate dinners, harvest weekends. It kept the vineyard alive during 2 lean seasons. To do it legally, Elena had registered a portion of the property under a mixed-use agricultural and hospitality designation, tied to permits, tax filings, insurance rules, and state reporting requirements. All of it was public record. Nothing was hidden. But men like Vincent do not read records when greed is whispering that speed matters more than caution. If he had hired a competent title attorney, that attorney would have found the designation in an hour. If he had routed the transfer through the business entity Diane and I created, he might have protected himself. But Vincent was desperate. He wanted the vineyard inside his personal family trust, fast, clean, and under his control. So, when he accepted the deed, he accepted everything attached to it. That included unpaid commercial reconciliation from the 2 years after Diane got sick, late event license penalties, state re-audit fees triggered by the ownership transfer, and tax obligations tied directly to the hospitality zone. The total came to just over $740,000, due within 45 days. It was not personal debt. It was regulatory debt attached to the property use. That meant bankruptcy would not wash it away. A quick sale would not solve it. A refinance would freeze until the state cleared the lien. Vincent thought he had taken my land. What he had really taken was the one burden he could not afford. Elena called Tuesday morning. It's attached, she said. The state filed the lien an hour ago. He can't sell, refinance, or walk away. I closed my eyes, not smiling. Vincent had taken the deed, and the debt had followed him exactly where we needed it to go. Vincent called less than an hour after Elena did. I let it ring twice, not because I wanted to punish him, but because I needed to remember the sound of my own breathing before I heard his panic. "You set me up," he said. There was no hello, no polish, no expensive confidence, just a man running out of floor beneath his feet. "The state froze the property," he said. "There's a lien, $740,000. Some commercial designation buried in the deed." "It wasn't buried," I said. "It was public record." "You knew." "I knew what was attached to my own land. You would have known too if you had done a proper title search." His breathing came fast through the phone. "Don't play righteous with me. Tom, you planned this." "No," I said. "You planned it. You threatened me with edited footage. You chose the title office. You drafted the transfer. You took a shortcut because you thought an old man was too scared to read what you put in front of him." For a moment, all I heard was static and breath. "I don't have that kind of money," he said, and his voice cracked on money. "You know I don't." "Yes," I said, "I know." "Then undo it. Call your lawyer. Tell the state it was a mistake. I'll sign it back. I'll delete the video. I'll tell Nathan the truth. I'll tell Priya whatever you want." I stood at the kitchen window, looking over the vines Diane and I had planted when our backs were young and our bank account was empty. The morning sun was on the leaves, turning them gold at the edges. "There's something you need to understand before you ask me for mercy," I said. He went quiet. 11 years ago, your Texas company was 90 days from bankruptcy. You had investors circling, one lawsuit ready to file, and no bank willing to touch you. Then, a private lending group gave you $400,000 in emergency financing. Silence. "You told people it was a private equity contact," I said. "You told Priya you saved yourself because you were smarter than the men trying to bury you." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that lending group was funded by me and Diane." The line went so still I thought he had hung up. "Nathan had just started dating Priya," I said. "Diane liked her. I liked her too. We knew you were her father, and we thought maybe a man under pressure deserved one chance to stand back up before the world judged him forever. So we helped you without asking for your gratitude." A sound came through the phone then, small and broken. "I didn't know," Vincent whispered. "I know," I said. "That is the ugliest part. You looked at the family that threw you a rope, and because you didn't recognize the hand, you tried to steal the land it worked for." He said my name once, but it did not sound like a threat anymore. It sounded like a man staring at a door that had locked from the outside. I ended the call and set the phone down beside Diane's mug. Outside, the vineyard was quiet, not victorious, just steady. The weeks that followed did not look like revenge in a movie. No shouting on courthouse steps, no fistfight in the vineyard, just envelopes, filings, phone calls, and the slow machinery of law finding every place Vincent had hidden from it. Once the state lien froze his stolen prize, his other investors stopped waiting. Complaints became sworn statements. Sworn statements became charges. Within 6 weeks, Vincent was facing fraud investigations in California and Texas. And every creditor he had dodged seemed to smell blood at the same time. The vineyard debt was not the whole wall around him. It was the stone that made the wall finally close, and this time, no smile could talk him out. Elena called me on a rainy Tuesday evening in November. I could hear traffic through her office window, and for a moment she did not speak like an attorney. She spoke like a woman disappointed by how low a man could still go. "Vincent gave a statement," she said. "He is telling investigators Priya pushed the trust plan from the beginning." I closed my eyes. "He is naming his own daughter to reduce his exposure," Elena said. "He claims he only acted because Priya was worried about Nathan's inheritance." There are betrayals that shock you. And there are betrayals so ugly they make every earlier warning sign suddenly make sense. Vincent had not protected Priya. He had used her wedding, her marriage, her future, and now her name as insulation against the consequences meant for him. Elena told me investigators showed Priya the statement that afternoon. She sat in that room holding a paper cup of water with both hands and did not drink. Then she called Nathan, not her father, Nathan. She asked him for the truth about the brake failure, the oven, the edited video, the old loan, and, for once, my son did not choose peace over honesty. He told her everything. Elena said Priya went quiet for a long time, then whispered, "I saw it. I saw all of it. I just kept calling it love." Nathan came back to the farmhouse on an afternoon in early December, when the vines were bare and the ridge looked stripped down to truth. His truck stopped in the same gravel patch where Vincent's Range Rover had sat months earlier. For a moment he stayed behind the wheel, head bowed, gathering courage to step out. When he climbed the porch steps, I almost did not recognize the man in front of me. My son was 29. But grief had put 10 years on his face, his jacket hung loose, his eyes were red. The boy who used to race me between vine rows stood there with his mouth trembling, trying to be a man and a child. "Dad," he said. And the word broke. I opened the door wider. "Come in out of the cold." He shook his head. "I don't deserve coffee. I don't deserve to sit at Mom's table." That hurt more than I let show. "Then start with the truth," I said. "That's all your mother asked." He pressed both hands over his face. "I'm sorry." Once he started, the words came rough and honest. He was sorry for asking me not to make a scene while my hand was burning. Sorry for looking at Priya's family before looking at his own father. Sorry for letting Vincent sound wise because Vincent sounded rich. Sorry for wanting peace so badly he confused it with loyalty. "I saw your hand," he said. "I saw it. And I still asked you to protect my wedding instead of letting me protect you." I stepped onto the porch and put my good hand on his shoulder. He folded into me, not like a little boy, but like a grown man who had finally run out of places to hide. "I forgive you," I said. He cried harder. "But forgiveness is not a curtain we pull over what happened," I told him. "It doesn't make that night disappear. If you and Priya build anything from here, it has to stand on truth, not comfort. Your mother and I built this place with our hands. You rebuild your life the same way." 2 weeks later, Priya's letter arrived in a plain white envelope, her handwriting careful and stiff. She did not defend herself. She did not blame Nathan, me, or even the father who had used her name to save himself. She wrote that she was sorry for every silence she had mistaken for loyalty, every excuse she had made because truth felt too dangerous to touch. Then she said she had filed for an annulment, not because she hated Nathan, but because no marriage could grow in soil poisoned before the vows were spoken. The following spring, Vincent Okafor stood in federal court, wearing a suit that no longer looked expensive. Elena told me he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of fraud tied to his Texas deals and 1 count of attempted coercion connected to the vineyard. 3 years in federal custody, restitution that would follow him long after the cell door opened. His lawyers fought to untangle the trust, but the lien had done its job. It held the property still, frozen in place, until the court voided the transfer and Callahan Ridge returned to my name. When Elena called with the final order, I was sitting on the porch with coffee cooling in my hand. Exactly like the morning this all began. The rows were bare, winter quiet, waiting for another season. I expected anger to rise, maybe triumph. It did not. All I felt was the kind of tired relief a man feels after setting down a weight he carried so long, he forgot what his shoulders were supposed to feel like ever again afterward. There is something I understand now that I wish I had learned before my hand ever touched that oven. I used to believe silence was dignity. I thought a man proved his strength by absorbing insults, by keeping peace, by not making other people uncomfortable with the truth. But peace built on humiliation is not peace. It is permission. For too long, I let Nathan see me swallow things I should have named. I let Vincent mistake restraint for fear. I let people stand close to my life's work and talk about it like I was already gone. That was my mistake. And I own it. A man does not protect his family by letting wolves use the word family as a key to the door. Justice did not come to me with shouting. It came through records, signatures, patience, and one decision I should have made sooner: to stop letting people who loved what I had more than they loved me decide what I was worth. If you are listening to this with someone in your life who smiles while crossing your boundaries, pay attention. If your own family keeps asking you to stay quiet so their comfort can survive your pain, pay attention. You do not have to burn everything down to stand up for yourself. Sometimes you only have to stop moving out of the way. Nathan and I are still learning to speak honestly. Priya is rebuilding somewhere. I hope the truth treats her gently. As for me, I sit on this porch mornings with coffee going cold beside Diane's mug, watching the vines wait for another season. If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments what hit hardest. Share it with someone who needs courage, and stay close, because the truth has a way of coming home.